It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang!
And that is it. We are short a man this week. Les is out of town doing the family thing, and we wish him a safe trip, and hopefully he gets back in one piece, and I hope he's having a lot of fun.
He better be having a blast, that's all I'm saying.
So, Mikey, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, in my corner of the galaxy, I have discovered something, and this it always feels like a revelation to me, but
Eureka!
It's something that's been going on for a long time. I had not heard of something Les brought up. I don't know. This is at least a month ago. He mentioned the Mads.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know those guys were doing what they're doing, and I wasn't entirely sure what they were doing. I have actually since figured out what they're doing, or at least part of it, and turns out it's pretty damn cool. They have a podcast that is called Movie Sign with the Mads. It is Frank Conniff and Trace Beaulieu and another friend of theirs, Carolina Hidalgo, and they get on the thing once a week, and they talk about a movie. And a lot of times they're talking about current movies, especially now because it's the summer and there's a freaking new movie every week. So, like, for example, this week they're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. They all went to see it, and they were talking about it on their show. It's kind of cool. It's not exactly what I expected. I guess I was expecting it to be just constant odd jokes like MST3K, but it's not. It's not at all. It's like three people just talking about movies. Three people who clearly love movies talking about movies, and it's not really that many. I mean, there are jokes. Believe me, there are jokes, but there's not really that many, and it's just them talking. I mean, because they kind of hover. They know a lot about movies, and it's just really cool because they're just talking about the movie. I mean, I realize I've said that like 5 times now, but like I said, it was a little mind-blowing for me. I expected something totally different, and I got what they do, and it's actually really cool.
I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do they talk about the movie?
They do, strangely enough. I don't know where you got that idea from. You just pulled it out of thin air somewhere or something, I guess.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Cool.
It is very cool.
I did not realize they were doing a podcast. I knew they were doing this little tour thing, but I did not look into the specifics about it. So that's cool. I may have to check that out myself. Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty interesting.
It is. They talk about the movie.
There you go. Speaking of talking about the movie, I finally sat down and watched a film that I was very interested in. It came out last year. The marketing for this was pretty impressive because it was about this time last year when this movie was talked about. It was talked about under another name. The name that it was going by at this point was called The Woods. And then when San Diego Comic-Con came around, they revealed that The Woods was actually The Blair Witch, the sequel to the original film.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I first heard about this, I got kind of excited because I liked the first film. I thought it was great. The Book of Shadows, the sequel, I know there's a lot of... It's not as good. I will admit that. I don't hate it as much as most people do. What I highly recommend for those who can if you don't have the DVD, which I'm sure most people don't, if you can get access to a DVD, I highly recommend listening to the director's commentary
On Book of Shadows?
on Book of Shadows.
Okay.
Because, and I can't remember the director's name, he's an acclaimed documentary. So the studio hired him to do this film, but not do it as a documentary, like the first one was. So he's going against grain right there.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say they probably knew they weren't gonna get away with found footage on a sequel.
Probably.
So.
Well, they did. Well, they did it again for Blair Witch. So.
Yeah.
The script's not that. It's not a strong script. I will admit that. And if you listen to the commentary, you hear that there was a lot of studio interference. That there was things that he was wanting to do. Some of the stuff he was wanting to do was more camera tricks instead of actually using special effects. Like if you see a spectral form, the way he would have done it was you see the actor turn and look and he sees a person, and then you cut back to that actor's reaction, and then you cut back, and then the form's not there. That's how he was wanting to do it in the film. But the studio got involved, and then that's when they have the fading in and out and some of the other CGI stuff and that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of, apparently, nothing else to say. It's interference because they wanted bigger and better because they knew how much the first one did. And they said, well, we got to do this so we can do equal box office. And, of course, we know what happened. So, with that said, we got the sequel last year. And it's been, 20, something like that, almost 20 years since the last one.
I was thinking Blair Witch was, 99?
Yeah, maybe.
98, 99, something like that.
Yeah. And basically, they do it as a direct sequel to the first one, which seems like a lot of horror films are doing that nowadays. They just basically say, yeah, these films don't exist. Just move along.
Sometimes they do that before they release, but anyway.
Right. I want to say I liked it, but I really didn't. It was almost beat for beat to the original, which is kind of sad. So it was almost like it was a remake, but it was also a sequel. So I guess what you call that, a requel?
It's either that or a C-make, and I think requel sounds better.
Okay. I wouldn't advise anybody if you're interested in it, go ahead and check it out. I mean, I'm not saying there were some kind of interesting things that happened, but it was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, honestly, I have not seen it yet. I would like to as well, because I did like the first one too. I had heard from a trusted source that it was, not. There was really not much new in it, but what was there was done pretty well.
Yes.
So that's what I had heard.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's almost beat for beat what happened in the original film. But it's just some of the stuff the upgrade in technology helped. Although you kind of wonder how the reality of them getting some of the technology they had in this film, even though they explain it to a degree, you're still going, okay. I mean, with little video cameras, they can kind of go around your ear and that kind of stuff. Okay, you take that with a grain of salt, that kind of thing. But there were some interesting visuals. There were some nice little jump scares, but I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. I guess that's the best way to say it.
You were hoping for something a little different, and
you
didn't get it. basically.
Yeah.
You're hoping for, I mean, I don't know. You were hoping for as much of an original story as you're going to get out of a sequel. But
Yeah. I remember reading a bunch of stuff where the original creators had actually thought about going back and doing some of the stories that the legend was based off of. Doing something about actually the witch herself, Ellie Kedward, kind of doing, for lack of a better word, an origin story, or story on Rustin Parr, the guy who was killing all the kids back in the 40s, and those might have been interesting to see. Just kind of expand on those.
yeah, but it's a different kind of movie.
It's a different kind of movie,
or it should be.
Well,
it should be a little more. I hesitate to use the word traditional here, but it should be a little more of a traditional horror film at that point, or serial killer type movie. I mean, you're looking at more like an Ed Gein type thing than the mysterious, borderline supernatural Blair Witch thing.
Right. Well,
which I'm not. Hey, I'm all for, honestly. I like the idea. That would be the something different that you'd like to see that some of us would like to see with a kind of a mythology like this. You're going to set up a mythology, explore it a little bit.
Yeah, explore it, because the mythology is awesome. You know, it's all borrowed and based off of legends that we've heard elsewhere, and that's fine. That's how urban legends are built. Mm-hmm. You know, a movie of Rustin Parr who's hearing these voices telling him what to do, that may be a little bit different than, say, an Ed Gein, where he was, and there's 2 or 3 Ed Gein films. I don't know how many of those you've seen.
At least a couple.
The one I really like is the one with stars Steve Railsback.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one. That's the one I know I've seen. I want to say I've seen a different one. I'm not remembering for sure.
Well, there's one with Kane Hodder, who was Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th, and it basically feels like a Friday the 13th film.
Right.
And that's kind of it.
And there's basis for Ed Gein is part of the basis for nearly every slasher movie out there. So.
Yeah, but I kind of like the approach of the Railsback. Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much.
It had a nice foundation. It built a nice foundation in normal life.
Yes.
Which gave it, and then it turned up the creep factor really well.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that's what made it not only a more interesting film. I think it made a more scary film. Because of that realism, because it's
more psychological at that point.
Yes, it's psychological. It's more realistic. Because you go, hey, this actually happened. You know, the Friday 13th and that kind of stuff. You know, that's all make believe. Ed Gein actually happened.
Yeah, that was real.
That was real.
And again, was a lot of the basis for at least noticeable chunks of the genre.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, just right off the bat, Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has been borrowed from it. The Buffalo Bill Killer from Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
Just to name a few. And then, of course, those characters have spawned off others. So, yeah, you're right. I mean,
It's fun to see how so much of the horror mythology is based on actual real life events.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's not friggin' creepy, man, I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, it's very creepy. Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a couple of moments to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, I want to say thank you to Peter Smeddy of Alterna Comics and their Make My Indie catalog, the online catalog for print, digital, and web comics. Summer catalog is available now. It's 147 pages, free. It includes previews, reviews, interviews, a lot of good stuff from publishers that you may not be aware of. Some really good books. I know Mikey and I have reviewed some of them, and there's definitely some we would like to get our hands on to kind of check out. So if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors tab, you will see the Make My Indie logo there, right there. You click on the link, and you can download a free catalog, either a PDF or a CBZ file, and check it out. You never know what you might come up with. You might find some worlds that you didn't know you wanted to explore there. Also want to thank Things from Another World for being a sponsor of the Fellowship. Currently, the only deals that are going on right now are their evergreen deals, which include a massive 40% off comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles, and 50% off Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels. So while you're on our sponsors page, if you just scroll right down, you'll see information for Things from Another World, and just click on one of those images there. That'll take you to their website and lets them know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of some of these great deals.
Yep, and we've got banners all over our website for Things from Another World, so.
That's true, too.
Yep, they're all over the place. It's great.
They're everywhere.
They're pretty.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, for this week, we decided to have a little fun and talk about a subject that I don't think we might have mentioned in passing, but we hadn't really spent a lot of time on. So we figure we would devote an episode to comic strips. Kind of choose some of our favorite ones. I don't know about Mikey or you out there in the audience, but I used to read them every day. I don't do it as often as I used to. A lot of them are online now. That's a good thing. But yeah, I just remember, especially Sundays. Oh, Sundays! You get that 2 or 3. What is it? How many pages? Was it 4 pages? And it's all in color.
Oh, there were times when it was 6 and sometimes even 8 pages back in the day.
Right. Yeah. A lot of them were funny. Some of them were just straight action, adventure, or drama. But there was a wide variety of strips. So we figured we would take an episode and kind of go through some of our favorite ones. Mikey, why don't you lead us off?
All right. I suppose the one that kind of got me started, the one that kind of hooked me at first, given my age range, it's probably not going to be real surprising. But one of the ones that caught me early on was Garfield.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure why, because I would have been young at the time, but I mean, I liked it enough to have several of the book collections that came out, and it was one of the ones I went to in the paper first off. I mean, usually they had them kind of in a fairly consistent order, and I knew which one to go down to get to Garfield. Usually it was up near the top. But right. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it may have worn thin later on, but because it really kind of was the same jokes over and over, but I don't know, something about that cat's attitude I kind of could relate. I mean, because ultimately there's a hardcore introvert in that cat, and that was me to a T. So maybe I'm weird for this, but yes, I related to Garfield. I also like lasagna, but
yeah. Yeah, you can only do so many jokes about eating lasagna and wanting to sleep.
Mondays. Yeah.
And hating Mondays, hating Odie.
Hating the little Nergal. Nergal?
Yeah, and I think that's right. And then not thinking highly of your Master John. So, but yeah, it was a fun strip. I don't know if it's still. I'm not sure if it's still going on. I'm sure.
I don't know either. Just like you, I kind of quit paying attention several years ago.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, I guess when you sort of you get to a point where the internet takes over and you stop getting the paper every day, you
Yeah.
just kind of don't. It's not a thing so much. And yeah, you see them online some, but unless you're going to look for them specifically, which who has time for that? You know, I wish I did, but
I think there is a website that has all that. It's nothing but just doing the daily strips, but I don't know that for a fact. I think I've seen something about that, and I'm not. If it is, then that's a pretty cool idea. But that may be something I need to investigate.
yeah, I
So,
know back in the day, this would have been, I don't know, at least 10 years ago. Sites like, and I'll use Yahoo as an example, even though they're on the way out at this point. Um, back back in the day, the cool new thing was you could kind of personalize your own website page,
hmm
and so you could tell it what news stories you wanted to see, and they also had several of the comic strips, and you could pick which ones you wanted to pop up, and there would be stuff like little word puzzles or whatever, and just various odd crap that you could stick on the thing and check it out. And I remember doing that at one point and having several of the comic strips popping up every day on the thing.
Personalize your own page. I kind of miss that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if it's now too simple a concept
Yeah.
for today. I mean, you do that kind of shit on your phone at this point,
Yeah.
if you
pretty
have a
much.
smartphone.
Right.
If you have a smartphone.
Alrighty. My first choice may be an obvious one because it was one I loved as a kid, and I identified with several of the characters, and it had been around for forever. It actually ran for about 50 years, and that's Peanuts. I mean, who doesn't identify with Charlie Brown? We all have Charlie Brown days and moments and
Wait, what? I have no idea what you're talking
okay.
about. Yeah, right.
You know, they wanted to be as cool as Snoopy, that kind of thing. It was just a fun little strip. And of course, they jumped to cartoons. Love the cartoon specials, or the older ones. I have not checked out some of the ones that they have done in the last couple of decades. I know every year you'll see some of the holiday specials come out on DVD, and then you'll see like they're back up with something similarly themed, and I have not checked those out. I don't know, so I don't know if they're good or not.
Didn't they do like an actual full-blown movie like in the last couple of years?
Yeah, they did. I have
I
not
never
watched
saw
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess by then I wasn't interested anymore. I don't know.
No.
But
I love the movie. I love the movies back in the day. The Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown, Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown, and Don't Come Back. That's a fun one where they are part of the student exchange program.
hmm
Those were fun. I enjoyed those a lot. Alrighty, Mikey.
Okay, I'm going to go with another one this is actually the one that I kind of expected to be on all three of our lists.
Okay.
But I got to go, I mean, it's really high on mine. I got to go Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, that was my number one. And you know darn well it was on Leslie's list.
Oh gosh, yes. And I mean, how could it not be? Because again, this is another kid I identified with way too well. I did not actually have an imaginary friend, but I didn't have a lot of friends, and I wasn't quite that crazy and wild, but I could. It was one of those things that I would read those things and wish I had the guts to do some of that stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, the snowman. The snowman cracked me up every time. Every time. The murderous
Oh God,
horror
yes.
scenes, snowmen.
Oh, the carnage, yes.
Oh yes, the carnage. Too cool.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that strip's been over for so long, but I'm actually following the official Twitter page. So every day they post a new strip. It's not a new strip, but they're posting. It's a cartoon from the past, and it always gives me a chuckle. It's so I guess I'm reading that one still.
Right. Yeah. You haven't given that one up yet.
I haven't given that one up,
Oh,
but it's so fun to check those out because I mean he's. I'm sorry, some of the stuff he says. If I had tried that at his age, I would probably be dead by now.
well, for one, none of us knew what any of that shit meant when we were his age.
True.
We wouldn't have had any idea. And so, yeah, I mean, and yeah, there would have been a lot of backhands involved if we had, as kids, had said some of the crap that kid said. Absolutely. Yeah, now I'm at the point where when I do see them, I actually relate to the dad better than I do to Calvin, which is also still pretty funny. The dad's pretty funny. I don't know if you're paying attention to those, but yeah, the dad, he's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with this kid. And I can relate to that so well sometimes. Any parent can.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you saw it. Well, I don't think you have Netflix, and I'm not sure it's still on Netflix. But I think it was last year, a documentary was put up on Netflix, and I believe it was called Dear Mr. Watterson.
I've heard about it. Yes.
It's really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it.
If you can track it down, you should check it out. It's really good. It's a really nice kind of memory thing. And he was not, if he was involved in the making of it at all, he was not on screen at all. But it's a very nice documentary, which gives kind of some of the history and all of that, and then has some really cool guests talking about Calvin and Hobbes. It's really nice. It's a really nice documentary.
Right. Yeah, I've heard about that and definitely would love to check that out, but so far no success. But yeah, that was on the top of my list.
Yeah, I figured that would make everybody's list, so I figured I better jump it in there quick.
There you go. I remember when this next trip started up, I was kind of stunned. I mean, there was days where I didn't understand what was being done, and then there's other days where I would just laugh for hours just looking at the images. And from what I've seen, it's still going on to this day, and it's bizarro. It's just a one panel strip.
Panel strip or single panel comic.
Right. And it was more times than not, it was something very bizarre. And like I said, there was days where I just go, okay, I'm not seeing what the joke is here. And then sometimes there'd be some days where I just, hours after seeing the cartoon, somehow that image pops in my mind and I start laughing again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of hit or miss, but it hits a lot more often than it misses, for sure.
Definitely.
It is still going on? He's still drawing those? Wow, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen those in a while, but yeah, that is one I liked as well. I almost put that on my list.
Cool. Alrighty.
All right, since you brought up a single panel, I got to go with what is possibly, beyond Family Circus, the best known single panel comic in history. Mainly because it quite possibly the best. Far Side.
That was on my list too.
All right, that's another one I would not be surprised if it's on all of our lists, but
right.
We'll never know it was on Les's list.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Oh well.
Oh no, he'll tell us if we ask. But yeah, I mean, oh man, again, one of those that is stuff. Some of that stuff is just so out there. It's just incomprehensible, and then other stuff is just so on point. I mean, one of my favorites, the one that I for some reason always remember, is this kid is walking into his school, and at the sign, I don't remember what the name of the school was, but it was basically a school for gifted children. And he's sitting there pushing, leaning all his weight on this door, pushing it, and there's very clearly a sign that says "pull" on the door.
Oh yes, yes.
The people miss the gifted children thing at the top. That's
Yeah.
way up at the top, and it's like a sign on the side of the building. It's School for Gifted Children. People don't notice that, but that's funny.
That's right.
It's not quite as funny when I explain it like this, but that's, again, you know.
Yes, I can see that. Actually, I can actually see the image in my head.
Uh-huh.
Because he's doing everything he can to push.
He's pushing with all his might on that door that clearly says pull.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. Gifted children.
Yep.
But yeah, that's just the kind of stuff. And the cows. Oh my God, the cows. Cows and cows and cows. Cows are funny, man. And Gary Larson showed us all the time that cows are funny, and that, you know, what else can I say? Cows are funny. I mean, that's it.
That's right. Okay, well, you've already mentioned them, so I'm gonna bring it up. Family Circus.
Ah, okay.
I again, this is, you know, I haven't read any of these in forever, but it was such a nice, sweet, little humorous cartoons, especially with the kids. I always loved the ones where Billy had to sit in to do the cartoon that day, the comic that day. So I mean, it looks like a 4 or 5-year-old drawing characters and situations and that kind of thing. Or one where one of the kids, you see them either going around the house or going around the town, and you see their dotted lines, and this is the path they took, that kind of thing. Or one of the other visual gags was when mom or dad was trying to find out who did what. You know, who did, you know, if there was an accident or something, well, who did that? And they would all say, not me, and then there's this little ghost that says, not me, written on them. Just standing there, that kind of thing. It's a cute little, funny, you know, it kind of hits the right spots. To me, at least it did. Mm-hmm. I hadn't read those in forever too, but I think it's still going.
They wouldn't have kept it around as long as they have if it didn't work. And yeah, it's classic stuff, man.
Yep. So, alrighty, you got any others?
I got a couple more here.
Okay. Another
one that I always thought was hilarious was Foxtrot.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'm at the point where I don't even know if I remember all their names anymore. But yeah, again, there was the youngest kid was kind of the geeky kid, and so I always related to him best. Mainly because he played D&D. That was a big part of it. I'm not gonna lie, because this was in a time. This started after the bad time, but the dark times for D&D. But there was still that lingering thing, and so it was always it's finally breaking free. But yeah, I mean, in like the late 80s, early 90s, this kid's playing D&D in a comic strip, and I mean, generally it's funny stuff anyway, and just the kinds of trouble they got into, just lots of fun.
Cool. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen any of those, but yeah, Foxtrot.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen any of them really, but yeah, that was one that was one of the first ones I would go to when I'm looking at the paper.
Okay. I have another one. This is one that I didn't really come across until I guess my college days, and I noticed them. I would pick up the Dallas Observer. For those who are not obviously local, it was just kind of a weekly paper of arts and
it kind of covered the indie scene.
Yeah,
like back in the 90s and even into the 2000s.
Yeah,
I don't think it's still around anymore, which is
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's still around or not. But it was checking out the Observer is when I come across this, and it was Matt Groening's Life in Hell.
Ah, yes. There's still a website for the Dallas Observer, so maybe it is still around.
So it could still be around.
Nice.
Most of the times, I think there were just one panels, but some of the stuff I remember was like how-to guides. It was usually just rabbits, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I just remember the rabbits because they were drawn just the way. I mean, the Simpsons.
Clearly his art style, yeah.
Yeah, it's his art style because it's the same art style as the Simpsons to a degree. But yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, and it's the kind of craziness that he couldn't get away with on The Simpsons, and so it was like a
Oh
vent
God,
for
yeah.
him. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some weird shit going on there. It was cool. I agree. I didn't get to see it as often as I would like to have, I guess. But yeah, there's some fun stuff in there.
All right, you got another choice.
I got one more. This was one that actually came along a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was still back in the day, but it was after. It started after some of these, and as far as I know, it's still around. It is called Pearls Before Swine.
Okay.
It's the one with such wonderfully named characters as Pig and Rat and Goat. And
nice.
yeah, and so Pig is this impressively innocent creature, and Rat is the snarky bastard that hates everybody, and Goat's kind of an innocent bystander type, and oh man. And every so often, it's a little. I mean, I remember it for other things, but the one that got me every time was he would go to these incredible. I mean, take up the Sunday, the double panel Sunday long form color one, and he would go to these extraordinary lengths to make up these horrific puns. Oh man, and they were just so bad. They were so bad they were good. And that, I mean, that's not, like I say, that's not the only thing that sticks with me with that, but it's at least an easy one to explain. And they were a lot of fun, despite being majorly groan-worthy. Also broke the fourth wall every so often too. The cartoonist actually appeared as a character from time to time.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Usually it was Rat threatening him, or telling him what an idiot he is, that sort of thing. So it was fun, a lot of fun.
I've heard of that one, but that's not one that I've actually checked out. So I may have to look into that one. Like I said, I've heard of it. So.
Oh sure, it's been in there for a long time.
I'll definitely.
But yeah.
Right. Or maybe I have and I just don't remember it. But yeah, I definitely have heard of the name.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one more. And this one, it was funny at the time, and then when you really start seeing it in real life, in some cases, sometimes it was even more funny, or maybe it was a little bit more sad. And I'm talking about Dilbert. A lot of the jokes were about the office environment and management and just some of the stuff that goes on, that kind of stuff. I have not read it in a long time, but it was just, like I said, it was kind of funny until you start actually working in an office environment and then seeing some of that stuff, something similar going on, and you're going, wait a minute.
Right. You're not sure if it's not funny anymore or if it's even funnier. Oh yeah. Dilbert, yeah. I liked Dilbert a lot back then. That guy has come under fire a lot lately too, but anyway. The art of the cartoonist.
Anyway.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about stuff that happened years ago here. We're talking about a funny comic from years ago, not politics from today.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that totally. There was actually, I don't know if you saw this, there was an animated series for that, for Dilbert.
Yeah.
And that was hilarious.
I've seen bits and pieces, but I've never actually watched the episodes. So.
Oh yeah, when I first got Netflix, that was on there, and so I watched them all, and it was, oh man, they were good.
Cool. They have to look into that.
Some great voice work going on there.
Oh, I bet. Well, cool. Pretty awesome list. And of course, there was quite a few that were left off. So that's our question of the week. What's your favorite comic strip? And tell us a little bit more about it. What did you like about it?
Yeah, whether we mentioned it or not.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Yeah, point us towards something that we either forgot about or didn't get to on the list or whatever.
There you go. Sounds good. Alrighty. When we come back, we will have our picks of the week. And we're back. It is time for our weekly picks, and Mike leads off.
I do leads off, and I'm leading off with an Image title. I like to pause because sometimes there's jokes made there, or laughter.
I was about to say, yeah, I was going to say surprise, but I'm sure it's running. I'm sure it's kind of starting to wear out. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, it's not my fault. They're putting out a lot of good books all the time. But anyway, so Postal 21. This is the beginning of a new arc. It is my understanding, I heard this in an interview not too long ago, that this is the final arc of Postal, which I'm very sad about because this is a badass book. Written by Brian Hill, drawn by Isaac Goodhart, and an absolute beautiful set of covers by Linda Sejic. And this one is, the cover for this is just, it's one of the creepiest, coolest covers I've seen in a while. But anyway, so the deal with the story is the FBI has been hipped to the existence of Eden for a while now, and they might just be finally getting around to doing something about it. And they've also been building up to bringing Mark's father back, which, if you're following the story, you'll know is probably a colossally bad thing. But we'll see. We get to see how it unfolds, see how they decide to wrap this thing up. It's going to be interesting. This has been a favorite title of mine for a while, and so it'll be fun to see.
Yeah, I'm sad to see this one ending, but I'm glad it's ending on its own terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd rather see it end now when everybody's comfortable with it ending, as opposed to dragging it out and making it suck.
Right.
I don't want that.
Agreed. So for my first pick, I am going with a title from American mythology, and it is Underdog number 2. It's written by Batten Lash, and he does some of the art, as well as Adrian Ropp. I totally enjoyed the first issue, not only the first issue, but their offering from pre-comic book day, because it totally captures the spirit of the old cartoon. Not just the underdog stories, but a one-page little interlude with Commander McBride and some of the other ones, the other characters that were part of the Underdog show. It's a fun, all-ages superhero book that I just can't recommend enough. I'm so glad that American Mythology is putting these books out. They're doing a lot of those. There's that. They've been doing Pink Panther. We're about to get a Rocky and Bullwinkle, and some of these other classic characters. I know at one time I thought I was thinking about us doing an episode where we talk about these characters, not only these characters, but the Harvey characters, such as Casper the Friendly Ghost and Wendy the Witch and all those, and I was going to bring up, could these still work in today's times? But someone's trying them. I mean, like I said, American Mythology's doing these. Yo Books is doing the Harvey characters, and they'll call it Harvey Hits. The first issue was a blast to read too, so definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, it's fun to see when those throwback type things work really well.
Yep.
I mean, not to get overly nostalgic, because honestly, these are a little before my time even, I think. But it's fun to see when, because sometimes it is fun to see them modernized, but something like Underdog, I don't know if you could modernize that. So I mean, it was almost throwback when it was on.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's cool to see when they do that and it works.
Yes. And these have been working, so that's the cool thing. Because it just has the vibe, and it's written kind of like the way the comics were back in the day, and especially the cartoons. So if that's your thing, I definitely recommend it. Even if it's not, hey, just take a gamble. Just take a. I don't think it's a. I think it's a low risk. I think you would enjoy it.
Cool.
So you are up again.
I am up again, and this one is a Titan title. It is Robotech #1. This is being written by Brian Wood, with art by Marco Turini, and it is a return to the TV show back from the 80s. But these are all new adventures, obviously, as they're being written by the very prolific Brian Wood. And if you're not sure, if you don't really know much about Robotech, the TV episodes are apparently now available on several streaming platforms, and there is a live-action movie in the works. So you're about to get this. This is probably like the beginning of. I almost hate to say it this way. This is kind of probably the beginning of the marketing push for all things Robotech that are getting ready to come out, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot of big fans of Robotech. That thing,
oh, yeah.
that was a big deal when we were kids. And honestly, what caught my eye on this, I mean, before I knew anything about it, what caught my eye on this was the cover. Again, with the covers with me, but it's got a beautiful cover on it. And I like, ooh, that's pretty. And I started reading the words next to it. I'm like, oh wow, Brian Wood wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big deal. So looks like it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of the Robotech fans are happy this book's coming out, and that's not something I got into, but I'll definitely check this book out just because Brian Wood, I like some of the stuff that Brian Wood has written in the past, so I'll definitely give it a look over.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, my next pick. Hey, I'm going with Image, Mike.
Cool.
Image Comics. It is the second issue of Shirtless Bear Fighter.
Cool.
Which, yes, he is shirtless in this one, as opposed to the first issue, if you've not read it.
Yeah. I was a little surprised by that, I have to admit, when I saw it.
Yes, we had to bag and board all our copies at the store just because we didn't want anybody to try to pick it up and go, oh my lord.
So, that's the safe route, yes.
Yes. Written by Jody Lehep, Sebastian Gerner, and art by Neil Vendrill and Mike Spicer. And where we take off is from the last issue is Shirtless has decided to join up and try to take down the bears that are attacking the city. And apparently, in this issue, he will encounter the hillbilly warlock, which, if you see the image of this character, you're going, oh my god. But it works so well because, as you can tell by the title, this is so much tongue-in-cheek, it's not even funny. In the first issue, he really did not. He was being recruited, and he was saying no. They offered him flapjacks and maple syrup, and he eventually decided. But it's like, wait a minute, flapjacks and maple syrup. I mean, we're talking. We're not just talking like a plate. We're talking about like cases of this. And you're going, okay, what the heck? what the heck am I reading here?
Not pancakes, damn it. Not pancakes.
Yes.
They're
yes,
flapjacks.
not pancakes. Yes. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it is. It's very over the top, and it's a lot of fun.
It is totally crazy. I mean, when they first announced this book, I was going, okay, this could be a wild trip. And yeah, one issue in, it's been pretty wild and it's been fun.
Yep, wild is a good way to describe it.
Definitely you want to check that out. Mikey, you think you got an honorable mention?
I think I do got an honorable mention. And it is an IDW honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
It is Atomic Robo Presents Real Science Adventures, Volume 1. And I want to say it was probably me, that talked about the new Real Science Adventures series that they're running now. This is actually, I believe, a reprint of the first Real Science Adventures arc run thing, and the RSA it's essentially a kind of an anthology based in the world of Atomic Robo. So Robo doesn't spend a whole lot of time on page, but there are other characters that they use, and they were kind of side characters in previous Robo adventures and kind of stuff that's in the history and mythology and all of that. And these were a lot of fun back then, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on them again, because I did not pick them up back in the day when they came out via another publisher.
Right.
So IDW is in their attempt to reprint all of the old stuff. They've gotten up to the RSA stuff, which, woo, I'm happy.
If you hadn't mentioned them, I'm sure it was Les, one of the two of y'all, because I know y'all are big Atomic Robo fans. I'm not as big a fan, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a fan. Y'all just...
We do take it a little far sometimes, yes. I admit that.
Yeah. Not saying that's a bad thing, but...
Love me some Robo.
Alrighty. I actually have two honorable mentions since we don't have the third member this week. I figured I would do two.
Woo.
My first one is from Archie Comics. It is Your Pal Archie, #1. And this book and this series is going to be more like the old Archie comics. There are still... A lot of those are being done in digest formats. Some are new stories, some of them are reprints. This is new material.
New material in the old style?
Actually, it is in a new style. It's a new look for all the characters, which is kind of interesting. A couple of stories are written by Ty Templeton, which, if you're very familiar with Batman, the animated series and other books, that name should be familiar with you. He does some of the inking as well as art by Dan Parent, although he wrote a story which I believe that one is a reprint, but and I'm saying this because Mikey and I have already got an advance look at this book, and I love it. It's the classic Archie, the fun hijinks that we're used to. Not saying anything's wrong with the new way, because obviously the books are doing real well, and it actually spun off into a TV show and all that. But I'm definitely glad to see the old Archie storytelling back in a comic book form and not a digest form. So,
yep.
So that is honorable mention #1.
Cool.
Honorable mention #2 is from Comics Tribe. Finally, Red 10 #10, the final issue of this story. It was written by Tyler James and art by Cesar Feliciano. I think I've talked about this book on other episodes.
Yes, you have.
This started back a couple years ago. And the premise of this is, if you're familiar with Agatha Christie's 10 Little Indians, or it's also known as And Then There Were None, I believe, was the other title that's under. Them being on an island and attend strangers that did not realize that they have some kind of a connection, but each one dies off one by one, and there is a poem left by the body, and it's done as the 10 little Indians. Think of that concept, but using analogs, I guess that's the right word, of the Justice League. So, like in the first issue, it was a version of the Red Tornado. In the second issue, it was their version of the Zatanna, and we go through all the characters that die off in each issue. It's been a real interesting mystery. I have a couple ideas on who's behind all of this, but we will finally get our answer, and I'm really hoping it's worth the wait. Because there was a long delay between, I think there was a long delay between issue 6 and 7, and then 7 and 8, and 9 just came out a month or two ago.
It was a couple of months ago, I think, so this has been pretty quick.
Yeah, so
by comparison,
by comparison, this is real quick. So I'm stoked for this. I'm ready to find out if who I think it is that's behind all of this is actually the culprit, or I am just totally off base and I'm gonna go, okay, you're gonna have to show me how it's this character, which of course they will, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's probably the butler.
Yeah, there you go. And if this has piqued your interest, the first part has been collected as a hardcover. It's actually issues 0, which was part of Free Comic Book Day a couple years ago, and then issues 1 through 5. So 0 through 5 have been collected as a hardcover and should be available at your local stores, or they should be able to order it for you, or you can just go to Comics Tribe's website. You might be able to get it there.
And now the 10's coming out, they'll probably get Volume 2 out pretty quickly, I would think.
Pretty quick, I would think so. Pretty quick. Hopefully they might have it out by Christmas, I would think, but
cool.
We shall see. Well, good choices all around, and I'm sure Les had some dynamite picks as well. We'll have to find out another day.
Mm-hmm.
And before we start wrapping things up, we do have a couple of special mentions. Do you want to handle them, Mikey?
I'll at least start.
All right.
Obviously, we want to express our sadness at the passing of George Romero, who was, by all accounts, an icon of the horror film industry. I mean, this guy, we don't have zombie films without this guy. I mean, plain and simple. And he also went on to do plenty of other stuff in his time, which he made movies for a long time. I mean, he was still making movies recently. But he unfortunately passed this week at the age of 77, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely going to miss him.
I saw something the day after he passed. Someone had taken a picture of a billboard, and this is in Pittsburgh, which he's from.
Yep, his hometown.
And so it's hometown, and that's where they filmed Night of the Living Dead. There was a billboard, and it was the zombie girl from the film, but it was done black and white, because if you're familiar with a lot of the images, you would recognize this girl. They had gone in and they had added a tear from the eye, and then down to the right-hand side of the billboard it said George Romero and his dates. And I was like, that's awesome.
Nice. That's nice.
Yeah, it's a very nice. I mean, that's all there is. It's just enough to get them. Yeah, it says it all. Gets the message across. Yeah. He will be missed. Yes.
Yeah, from what I understand, he's a really nice guy. Really nice guy.
Yeah. From what I've seen from friends of ours who have met him in person said he's just a sweetheart of a guy. So, but obviously our thoughts are with his loved ones and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the same day that news came down, just literally hours later, bird of Martin Landau had passed away after a brief stay at the hospital. He was 89 years old. Oh God, what didn't he do? He didn't do Star Trek. I've learned a couple of things about this. He had turned down the role of Spock, which is kind of funny
That's funny because Leonard Nimoy replaced him on Mission Impossible later on.
And that's what I was about to say. It's like it's the irony is pretty cool there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting sometimes, some of the stuff you find out, unfortunately, when something like this happens. But he was also a cartoonist. Talk about timing.
Beginning of his career, yeah.
Beginning of his career, he was a cartoonist. But obviously, as Mikey mentioned, he was on Mission Impossible for several years. He did the sci-fi show Space 1999, which I would love to watch again. I have not watched in forever, that I can't remember too much or anything at all. I don't know if anybody's streaming or not, but God, I want to watch it. And of course, he won an Academy Award for his portrayal of Bela Lugosi in the Tim Burton film Ed Wood, and he was perfect in that role. He was awesome. And so many other roles that that I didn't even mention. He's done it all, and he was in North by Northwest, the classic Hitchcock film. Such a great actor. He will be missed, and of course our thoughts are with his family, friends, and loved ones at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that it for all of the depressing mentions?
As far as I know, that's all we got for tonight.
That is it as of our recording time. Hopefully, we will not have to amend this.
Yeah.
Let's keep up positive thoughts here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into our regular shout-outs. First off, Manny the Martyr for the wonderful music that is part of our show. Great guys, pretty cool musicians. Obviously, we want you to check out their music. We'll have a link in the show notes, and obviously if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our podcast page, you will see their logo. Just click on that. That'll take you there. So go check them out. Thank you, guys. And we also want to thank the wonderful men and women of the Podern family on Twitter for spreading the word, retweeting our links to our episodes. We highly suggest you go to Twitter. Don't necessarily have to have an account. Do a search, #PodernFamily. And if you're looking for any kind of particular podcast, more than likely, you will find it, because there's just about anything out there. Any kind of subject matter that you can think of, it's out there. Just do a search, Podern Family, #Podern Family on Twitter. Thank you, gang, for your support. And obviously, thank you, dear listener. Thank you for downloading this episode and checking us out. Thank you for downloading our previous episodes. We hit a milestone this past week. We broke 2,000 downloads, which to me is very impressive for such a little small podcast. We've been doing it. We're just over a year and a half of shows. This is 72, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So thank you very much for the support. We're always interested in your feedback. If you have a comment, suggestion, question, anything you would like to tell us, we welcome it. And there are several ways you can contact us. You can go to the website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on the About Us tab, and there's a form there you can fill out. Or just a standard old email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. We will get it that way as well. You can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Feel free to like us, and you can send us a message that way if you like. Obviously, we are on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there and give us a shout out if you like. Mikey has his own Twitter account at Mikey Geek, and I have one as well at TomTCGeek. Feel free to follow us there and give us a shout out if you like. And wherever you download or listen to our episodes, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would rate us, whether it's the star system or thumbs up, thumbs down, or whatever. It would be much appreciated. And if you have a couple extra minutes to spare, a review would be awesome as well. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
Awesome. All right. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, just thanks, everybody.
Yeah, miss you, Les. Hopefully you'll be with us next week. Hope you're having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we always appreciate it. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,